Dr. Nathan Pierce wiped the sweat from his forehead as he guided his medical transport over the rocky terrain of Kepler 442b. The distress beacon had come through 20 minutes ago, and he still didn't know what he would find in the Canyonlands. His assistant, Lisa Morgan, sat beside him, checking the emergency medical supplies. "Are you sure about this, Nathan?" Lisa asked, her voice tight with worry. "Commander Henderson said we should wait for the security team." Nathan shook his head. "Whatever is out there is hurt badly. The biosigs are fading fast. We can't wait." The transport dropped into a narrow canyon, and Nathan's breath caught in his throat. There, sprawled across the red rocks, was a creature unlike anything he had seen before. She was massive, easily 30 feet long, with scales that shimmered between deep purple and midnight blue. Her wings were torn and bleeding, and one of her legs bent at an unnatural angle. "Is that a Dracovian?" Lisa whispered. Nathan had heard stories about the dragon-like aliens that lived in the mountain ranges, but most humans had never seen one up close. They kept to themselves, avoiding the colony. This one was clearly dying. He grabbed his medical scanner and jumped from the transport. The creature's eye opened slightly as he approached. It was a deep amber color, filled with pain, and something else. Sadness. Deep, overwhelming sadness. "Easy now," Nathan said softly, holding up his hands. "I'm here to help." The Dracovian made a low sound, almost like a whimper. Nathan began scanning her injuries. 3 deep wounds across her side, broken ribs, the shattered leg, and severe blood loss. But as his scanner moved across her body, it picked up something else. Recent biological changes consistent with having just given birth. Nathan's heart sank. He looked around frantically and spotted the remains of a nest about 50 yards away. He ran to it. The part of him already knew what he would find. 3 small bodies lay among the broken shells and scattered nesting materials. The hatchlings were no bigger than house cats, their tiny scales already showing the same purple-blue coloring as their mother. They had been killed recently, their valuable crystalline scales roughly cut away. Poachers. Nathan felt rage building in his chest. He had heard reports of illegal scale traders operating in the outer colonies, but seeing the results of their greed made him sick. He returned to the mother dragon, and now he understood the look in her eye. She wasn't just hurt, she was broken. "I'm so sorry," Nathan said, kneeling beside her massive head. "I'm so sorry." The Dracovian made another sound, this one filled with grief. A tear, actual tears, rolled down her scaled face. Lisa came up behind him. "Nathan, what do we do?" "The colony protocols say we're supposed to contact Henderson before treating any Dracovian. They're classified as potentially dangerous megafauna." "Look at her, Lisa. Does she look dangerous right now?" "No, but the regulations... I don't care about regulations," Nathan said firmly. "I became a doctor to save lives. All lives. Help me stabilize her injuries." For the next 2 hours, Nathan and Lisa worked frantically. They injected powerful antibiotics designed for large creatures, sealed the worst wounds with medical foam, and carefully splinted the broken leg. The Dracovian remained conscious but quiet, watching Nathan with those sad amber eyes. "We need to move her," Nathan finally said. "She can't stay out here. The scavengers will come, and she's too weak to defend herself." "Move her where?" "She weighs several tons, Nathan. My research facility. It has the reinforced bay for studying large specimens. We can use the transport's heavy lift system." Lisa stared at him. "You're going to get fired?" "Maybe arrested." "Then I get fired," Nathan said simply. "I'm not leaving her here to die alone." Getting the Dracovian into the transport was difficult, but she seemed to understand they were trying to help. She didn't resist, as the lift system slowly raised her massive body. Nathan kept talking to her the whole time, his voice calm and reassuring. By the time they reached the research facility on the edge of the colony, word had already spread. Commander Paul Henderson was waiting with 3 security officers. "Dr. Pierce, what exactly do you think you're doing?" Henderson demanded. "My job," Nathan replied, not slowing down as he guided the transport into the facility's loading bay. "I'm treating a patient." "That's not a patient. That's a wild Dracovian. Colony safety protocols require—" "She just lost her babies to poachers, Commander," Nathan interrupted, his voice hard. "They killed 3 hatchlings and left her to die. So right now, I don't particularly care what the protocols say." Henderson's expression softened slightly. "Poachers? Are you certain? The hatchlings had their scales removed. What else would it be?" The commander was quiet for a moment. "Even so, we can't have a wild Dracovian living in the colony. She could be dangerous when she recovers. Then station guards if you want, Nathan said. But she stays here until she's healed. After that, she can choose where she wants to go. Over the next 3 days, Nathan barely left the facility. He monitored the Dracovian's vital signs constantly, adjusting medications and changing bandages. Lisa brought him food and coffee, but he hardly touched them. A colony administrator, a stern woman named Helen Brooks, came to inspect the situation on the 3rd day. "Dr. Pierce, you've put me in a very difficult position," she said, looking at the resting Dracovian. "The colony charter has specific rules about housing dangerous wildlife. She's not wildlife administrator. She's an intelligent being who suffered a terrible tragedy." Helen studied the dragon for a long moment. The creature's breathing was steadier now, though she still hadn't fully opened her eyes. 1 month, Helen finally said. "You have 1 month to prove she's not a threat. After that, we'll need to make other arrangements." Nathan nodded gratefully. That night, as Nathan sat beside the Dracovian in the dim facility lights, she finally opened her eyes fully. She looked at him for a long time, and Nathan felt as if she was truly seeing him for the first time. "You're going to be okay," he promised her softly. "I know it doesn't feel like it now, but you will. You're not alone." The Dracovian made a soft sound, almost like a sigh, and closed her eyes again. But this time, Nathan thought he saw the tiniest bit of peace in her expression. 6 months had passed since Nathan brought the injured Dracovian to his research facility. The physical wounds had healed remarkably well. The broken leg was strong again, the torn wings had mended, and the deep cuts across her side were now just faint scars beneath her shimmering scales. But Nathan could see that inside, she was still broken. She spent most of her time curled in the corner of the large bay, her wings wrapped around herself like a protective shield. She ate the food Nathan brought, but only enough to survive. No bee sounds anymore. Not even the soft rumbles that Dracovians apparently used to communicate with each other. "She's giving up," Lisa said one morning as they watched her through the observation window. "Physically, she's fine, but emotionally, I know," Nathan said quietly. "I've been reading everything I can find about Dracovians. They bond deeply with their young. Losing them like that is like losing part of themselves." Every day, Nathan spent hours in the bay with her. At first, he just sat nearby and talked. He told her about his work, about life in the colony, about Earth and the stars beyond. He didn't know if she understood, but it felt important to keep trying. Slowly, very slowly, things began to change. After 2 months, she started watching him when he entered the bay. After 3 months, she stopped turning away when he approached. After 4 months, she made a sound when he arrived one morning. Just a small chirp, but it was the first voluntary sound she had made since losing her babies. "Good morning to you too," Nathan said with a smile, his heart lifting. He had started calling her Ember because of the way her scales sometimes caught the light like burning coals. He didn't know if she had her own name in the Dracovian language, but she seemed to respond to this one. Nathan began bringing the tablet with him, loaded with images and simple videos. He would show her pictures and name things. Tree, water, sky, mountain. Ember watched with growing interest, her amber eyes following the images carefully. One day, Ember reached out with her claw and touched the tablet screen herself, pointing at an image of the Canyonlands. "Home?" Nathan asked. "Is that your home?" Ember made a sound, a specific musical note. Then she touched another image, this one of a Dracovian in flight, and made the same sound. Nathan's eyes widened. "You're teaching me. That sound means Dracovian, doesn't it?" Ember's eyes seemed to brighten. She touched more images, making different sounds for each. Over the next weeks, Nathan began to understand the basic structure of her language. It was complex, combining sounds with body movements, but certain core words were clear. Lisa started helping him document everything. "Nathan, do you realize what this means?" "We're proving that Dracovians are not just intelligent, they're as intelligent as humans. Maybe more." "I know," Nathan said. "This could change everything for their species. Protect them from poachers, give them rights under galactic law. But more than the scientific importance, Nathan felt something else growing. A real friendship. Ember started greeting him each morning with a specific sound he now understood meant friend or trusted one. She would lower her head so he could check her healing wounds, something that required complete trust given how vulnerable it made her. One evening, Nathan was sitting beside Ember updating his research notes when she made a new sound. It was mournful and beautiful, filled with sadness. Then she carefully projected images in her mind, and Nathan realized with shock that he could somehow sense them. 3 small shapes, her babies. "I'm so sorry, Ember," Nathan said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry they were taken from you. He found himself talking about his own loss, something he rarely shared with anyone. His younger sister Katie had died in a transport accident 5 years ago. She had been only 16, full of life and dreams. Nathan had been studying on Earth when it happened, too far away to say goodbye. "I know it's not the same," he told Ember, "but I understand what it's like to lose someone you love, to feel like there's a hole inside you that nothing can fill." Ember was very still, listening. Then, slowly, she extended her massive head and gently touched Nathan's face with the side of her snout. It was a gesture of comfort, of understanding, of shared grief. Nathan felt tears running down his face. He reached up and placed his hand on her scales. They sat like that for a long time. Two beings from different worlds, connected by loss and the slow, painful process of healing. After that night, something shifted. Ember began moving around the bay more. She stretched her wings, testing their strength. She started eating with more interest, even showing preferences for certain foods. Nathan brought her fresh fish from the colony's aquaculture center, and she made a pleased sound that he had learned meant good or thank you. Administrator Brooks visited again, this time with a scientist from the Galactic Council. "Pierce, your documentation is remarkable," the scientist said. "The Council is prepared to reclassify Dracovians as sentient beings with full protection under interstellar law. Your work here has made that possible." Nathan felt proud, but when he looked at Ember, he knew the real achievement wasn't the scientific recognition. It was seeing the light slowly returning to her eyes. 6 months after her rescue, Ember left the facility for the first time. Nathan opened the large bay doors, giving her access to the outside. He half expected her to fly away immediately and never return. Instead, she walked out slowly, spread her wings in the sunlight, and took a short flight around the colony. Children gathered to watch, pointing and gasping at her beauty. Ember circled once, twice, then landed back at the facility entrance. She looked at Nathan and made the sound for home. That evening, she flew out to the Canyonlands to hunt. Nathan watched her go, his heart tight with worry. But as the sun set, he heard the distinctive sound of her wings. Ember returned, landing gracefully outside his quarters rather than the facility she had chosen to come back. Not because she was trapped or had nowhere else to go, but because she wanted to. Nathan walked out to meet her. "Welcome home, friend," he said softly. Ember lowered her head, and Nathan rested his forehead against her warm scales. They stayed like that as the stars came out above them, a human and a dragon healing together. 1 year after Nathan first found Ember in the Canyonlands, life in the colony had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Ember had become a regular sight, flying over the settlement each morning and returning each evening to rest near Nathan's quarters. Children no longer ran in fear when they saw her shadow overhead. Instead, they waved and called out greetings. Nathan's research had gained attention across the galaxy. Universities and research centers requested copies of his work on Dracovian intelligence and communication. The Galactic Council had officially recognized Dracovians as a protected sentient species, making it illegal to hunt them or trade their scales. 3 poaching rings had already been shut down, but despite all the positive changes, Nathan could sense something shifting in Ember. She had become restless over the past few weeks, often flying to the mountain ranges and staying away for longer periods. She would return looking troubled, making sounds Nathan had learned meant calling or need. "What's wrong, girl?" Nathan asked one evening as Ember paced near his quarters. "You've been acting strange lately." Ember made a complex series of sounds and movements. Nathan understood parts of it. Something about the mountains, about her people, about a time or season. She spread her wings and looked toward the distant peaks, where the last light of sunset still glowed. Lisa had been researching Dracovian behavior in the colony's expanded database. She came running to Nathan's quarters the next morning with her tablet. "Nathan, I think I know what's happening with Ember." According to the old survey reports, Dracovians have a seasonal migration. Every few years they return to their ancestral breeding grounds in the northern mountain ranges. It's a biological imperative. Nathan felt his stomach drop. "She has to leave?" "It looks that way. The migration season is starting now. She probably feels the pull to go." That evening, Nathan sat with Ember under the stars. He had brought his translation tablet, and together they managed to communicate more clearly than ever before. "You need to go to the mountains," Nathan said, showing her images, "to be with your people." Ember made an affirmative sound, but her eyes were sad. She touched Nathan's chest with one claw, then touched her own chest. The gesture was clear. It would hurt to leave. "I know," Nathan said, his voice breaking slightly. "You've become like family to me, Ember, but I understand. You need to reconnect with other Dracovians." You need to be with your own kind. Over the next 3 days, Ember prepared to leave. She flew longer distances, building up her strength. Other Dracovians had been spotted heading north, their forms dark against the sky. The colony gathered to watch the migration, a sight that hadn't been safely observed by humans before. On the morning of her departure, half the colony came to say goodbye. Children had made drawings for her, which Nathan showed her on his tablet. Ember looked at each one, making soft sounds that Nathan knew meant appreciation and affection. Administrator Brooks approached with a small box. Dr. Pierce, the colony wanted Ember to have something, a token of our gratitude for everything she's taught us. Inside was a medallion engraved with the colony's symbol on one side and an image of Ember on the other. Nathan carefully attached it to a flexible collar designed to fit comfortably around her neck. Ember examined it curiously, then made a pleased sound, but her own gift to Nathan was far more precious. She carefully plucked a single scale from her shoulder, one that had naturally loosened. In Dracovian culture, as Nathan had learned, giving someone your scale was the highest sign of trust and bond. It meant you considered them family. Nathan accepted it with trembling hands. The scale was the size of his palm, shimmering with inner light. "I'll treasure this always," he promised. Ember lowered her head one final time, and Nathan embraced her as much as he could, his arms barely reaching around her thick neck. "Be safe," he whispered. "Come back when you can." Ember made a sound that meant promise, then lifted her wings. With powerful strokes, she rose into the air. The colony watched as she circled once, twice, 3 times above them. Then she turned north and flew toward the mountains. Nathan watched until she was just a speck against the clouds, then nothing at all. The colony felt empty without her. Nathan returned to his regular work, but everything reminded him of Ember. The facility bay where she had recovered, the spot outside his quarters where she used to rest, the evening sky where her silhouette should have been. Lisa tried to cheer him up. "She'll come back, Nathan. You know she will." "Maybe," Nathan said. "But what if she finds her people and realizes she doesn't need us anymore? What if she decides to stay in the mountains?" Weeks turned into months. Nathan threw himself into his work, training new researchers in xenobiology and continuing to advocate for Dracovian rights. The colony expanded, and more families arrived from Earth. Life moved forward. But Nathan kept Ember's scale on his desk, and every evening he found himself looking north toward the mountains, hoping to see a familiar shape in the sky. A year passed, then another. Nathan had almost given up hope. He understood that Ember had her own life, her own people. Maybe their time together had been special, but maybe it had also been temporary. A dragon and a human, friends for a season, but ultimately belonging to different worlds. 2 years and 11 months after Ember left, Nathan stood in his office updating research files. He was now the head of the xenobiology department, with a team of 12 researchers under his supervision. His work on Dracovian intelligence had won awards. The colony thrived. But there was still an empty space in his heart where Ember used to be. Lisa burst into his office without knocking, her eyes wide. "Nathan, you need to come outside right now." "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." "Just come." Nathan followed her outside, confused. A crowd had gathered in the colony's central square, everyone looking up at the sky. Nathan's heart began to race. There, descending from the clouds, was a massive purple-blue form. Ember had come home, but she wasn't alone. The news of Ember's return spread across the colony within hours. By the next morning, people lined up to catch glimpses of the Dracovian family. Maya, Rex, and Sky were endlessly curious about everything. Maya investigated the colony's water fountains, making delighted sounds when the water sprayed. Rex watched the children playing and tried to mimic their games. Sky discovered her reflection in a window and spent 20 minutes making faces at herself. Nathan spent every free moment with them, teaching them just as he had taught Ember, but they learned faster, having Ember to translate and guide them. Within a week, all 3 understood basic human communication. Within 2 weeks, they were playing gentle games with the colony's children under careful supervision. But something even more remarkable was happening beyond the colony walls. Lisa came running to Nathan one morning, 3 weeks after Ember's arrival. "Nathan, you need to see this. We've been monitoring Dracovian movement in the mountains, and the patterns have changed dramatically." She showed him aerial footage captured by survey drones. Multiple adult Dracovians were seen carrying young ones that clearly weren't their biological offspring. The size differences and scale patterns made it obvious. "They're adopting," Nathan breathed. "Other Dracovians saw what Ember did, and they're doing the same thing." "It's more than that," Lisa said, pulling up more data. We're detecting increased cooperation between unrelated Dracovian groups. They're sharing hunting territories, protecting each other's young. Ember didn't just adopt 3 orphans. She started a social revolution. Commander Henderson arrived at Nathan's office that afternoon with representatives from the Galactic Council. Dr. Pierce, the Council wants to understand what's happening. Dracovian behavior has shifted across this entire region in just 3 weeks. Nathan looked out the window where Ember was teaching Sky how to dive properly, with Maya and Rex watching. She showed them a different way. For generations, Dracovians only cared for their biological offspring. When young ones lost their parents, they usually died. But Ember proved that wasn't necessary. That family could mean something more. One of the council representatives, a tall woman named Dr. Chen, nodded thoughtfully, and the other Dracovians trusted her example because she had been through the worst loss possible and survived. She had credibility. Exactly, Nathan said. She became living proof that love doesn't end with biology. Over the following months, the changes accelerated. Dracovian population numbers, which had been declining due to poaching, began to stabilize and then grow. Orphaned young now had chances for survival they never had before. Family groups became larger and more diverse. The poaching problem collapsed entirely. With so many Dracovians working together to protect their young, the criminal networks found it impossible to operate. The last major poaching ring was destroyed when a group of 20 Dracovians coordinated an attack on their base, something that would have been unthinkable before Ember's example. Nathan's research papers on the social transformation were read across the galaxy. Universities taught courses on the Ember effect, studying how one individual's choice had transformed an entire species' culture. But for Nathan, the real joy was watching Ember's family thrive. Maya had become fascinated with human technology and spent hours watching the colony's engineers work. Rex appointed himself as a guardian, often flying patrol patterns around the settlement. Sky had discovered music and loved when the colony held evening concerts. One evening, 6 months after Ember's return, Nathan sat with the whole family under the stars. The 3 youngsters were nearly adult-sized now, though still learning and growing. "Do you remember the day I found you?" Nathan asked Ember softly. "You were broken, dying. I thought helping you was just about saving one life." Ember made a contemplative sound and projected feelings of memory. Nathan sensed her thoughts. She remembered the pain, the grief, the moment she wanted to give up. And she remembered Nathan's voice telling her she wasn't alone. "You saved more than my life," Nathan said, understanding her message. "You showed everyone what compassion can create. One choice, one act of kindness, and look what happened." Lisa had been documenting everything, and she shared the statistics with Nathan regularly. Dracovian population projections now showed steady growth. Cross-colony cooperation had increased, with humans and Dracovians working together on conservation projects. Other colonies were establishing their own xenobiology programs based on Nathan's model. 3 other human doctors had successfully formed bonds with injured Dracovians, creating new bridges between species. Children in the colony grew up knowing Maya, Rex, and Sky personally, learning that intelligence and friendship came in many forms. Administrator Brooks announced plans to build a permanent interspecies cultural center, where humans and Dracovians could learn from each other. The Galactic Council approved funding, calling it a model for peaceful coexistence. But perhaps the most touching moment came 1 year after Ember's return. Nathan was in the Canyonlands, the same place where he had first found her dying beside her murdered children. He had come to place a memorial marker for those 3 lost hatchlings. Ember landed beside him silently. Maya, Rex, and Sky landed nearby, giving them space but staying close. Nathan knelt and placed the marker, a simple stone with words in both human and Dracovian languages. "In memory of 3 lives lost and the family that rose from grief." Ember stood beside him for a long moment. Then she made a sound Nathan had never heard before. It was musical and complex, filled with layers of emotion. Sadness for what was lost, but also joy for what had been found. Grief transformed into hope. The 3 youngsters joined in, creating a harmony. It was a Dracovian morning song, Nathan realized, but also a celebration of life. When they finished, Ember turned to Nathan and projected one final message. He saw images of that terrible day 3 years ago, saw himself choosing to help despite the danger and rules. Then the images shifted forward, showing Maya, Rex, and Sky laughing and playing, showing other Dracovians caring for adopted young, showing a future where loss no longer meant the end of everything. "You're thanking me," Nathan said, his voice choked with emotion. "But Ember, you're the one who did all this. You chose to love again. You chose to let your heart heal." Ember touched her head to his, and Nathan understood her final thought. They had both made choices. He had chosen to save her. She had chosen to honor that gift by saving others. And together, those choices had created something neither could have imagined. As they flew back to the colony together, Nathan looked at the family soaring around him. Maya doing loops in the air, Rex flying steady and protective, Sky singing to herself, and Ember, once broken and dying, now whole and surrounded by love. Sometimes the greatest thing you can give someone is a reason to keep living, Nathan thought. And sometimes, years later, they return to show you exactly what that reason became. Not just one life saved, but an entire way of thinking transformed. Not just one family healed, but a species learning that love could transcend loss. And it all started with one human doctor who refused to leave a dying dragon alone in the canyon.